Welcome back to Plot Core. Today, we're recapping a dark sci-fi survival story where a family hides from terrifying creatures for months, only to slowly realize the real danger was never what they thought. Claire suddenly noticed something strange. Their neighbors were packing up in panic, running around in fear. Claire and her family stepped outside to say hello, but the neighbors froze when they saw them, their faces filled with terror. Without saying a word, they turned around and ran. Confused, Claire looked around and realized something terrifying. Everyone else was fleeing except them. It felt like the whole town was escaping from something horrible. Without knowing why, Claire and her family grabbed their belongings and followed the crowd, rushing out of the city. But when they reached the only road leading out, they saw cars driving toward the city instead. People were being forced back. Soon, they found out why. The government had sealed off the exit. Soldiers ordered everyone to return home and wait for instructions. No one explained what was happening. Fear spread fast. Suddenly, a rock fell from the cliff and hit their car. Claire looked up. The entire mountain was shaking, like a giant monster waking up. Seconds later, two fighter jets roared out from behind the mountain and flew straight over the town. Without warning, they dropped incendiary bombs. In an instant, the town was covered in fire. People screamed and ran in all directions. The jets turned and headed straight toward them. Panic exploded. Claire knew there was a hidden shelter near the mountain, a place few people knew about. She grabbed her family, and they ran uphill as fast as they could. Just seconds after they escaped, the area behind them was blown into flames. It was clear now, the government wasn't trying to save anyone. They reached the shelter entrance just as the jets returned. The moment they slammed the door shut, a bomb exploded right above them. They didn't know how long they were trapped underground. Inside the shelter, Ray, the father, found large amounts of food and supplies. But they had no idea what had happened to the world outside. Survival became their only goal. They lived in that shelter for an entire year. Over time, they adjusted to the darkness. They locked the entrance tightly with heavy chains, believing the surface had been taken over by unknown creatures. They feared they might be the last humans alive. Zoe, their daughter, often used a small periscope through a vent to look outside. One day, she noticed movement deep in the forest. At the same time, her parents were outside searching for supplies. Zoe saw danger coming and screamed for them, but they were too far away to hear her. She stared at the stairs, remembering all the warnings never to go outside. But if she didn't act, her parents would die. Ignoring her fear, Zoe climbed out. She couldn't find her parents. Had the monsters taken them? She shouted in panic until someone suddenly covered her mouth. It was Claire. At that moment, something rushed toward them from the forest. They froze, but it was only a group of frightened deer. Relief washed over them until Claire realized something terrifying. If the deer were running, something far worse must be chasing them. They ran back into the shelter. Ray locked the entrance in the darkness with a thick iron chain. Heavy footsteps echoed above them. Whatever it was, it paced back and forth, searching. Zoe trembled, barely holding back tears. Ray whispered to her to stay quiet. Suddenly, a loud crash shook the entrance. They looked up and saw a shadow near the hatch. They didn't move. They didn't breathe. Then something went wrong. The string on Zoe's doll caught on a screw. When she pulled it free, the toy made a sound. In the dead silence, it was painfully loud. Ray reacted instantly. He ripped the doll from her hands, cut out the voice box with a knife, threw it to the ground, and crushed it under his foot. The sound stopped, but it was already too late. The creature above heard it. It slammed into the iron door with terrifying force. The chains shook violently. One by one, the metal brackets were ripped apart. Claire rushed forward, grabbing the last chain and using her body weight to hold the door. Still, the door slowly opened. Through the crack, a pair of glowing yellow eyes appeared. Ray charged forward with an iron rod and struck the creature, forcing it back. They slammed the door shut again and jammed the lock with the rod. For a moment, they thought they were safe. Then the footsteps multiplied. The creature had called others. The sound of dozens of heavy steps shook the shelter. The chains snapped. Metal tore apart. More glowing eyes appeared at the entrance. There was nowhere left to hide. The family ran deeper inside. They set curtains on fire and stacked shelves to block the passage, knowing it would only slow the monsters down. That's when Zoe spotted a small vent. Ray lifted Claire up first and pushed her through. Outside, Claire realized something shocking. All the monsters were inside the shelter. Outside was safer. She pulled Zoe up. But when Ray tried to climb out, his broad shoulders got stuck. The monsters were closing in. With no time left, Ray made an impossible choice. He broke his own arm to squeeze through. He was almost free when massive hands grabbed his ankle. Ray shouted his final words to Claire before being dragged back down. Screams echoed below. Fighting sounds followed. Then silence. Blood sprayed up through the vent. Claire knew what had happened. Ignoring Zoe's cries, she carried her and ran deep into the forest. Eventually, they reached the town they had escaped from. It was now a ruin, surrounded by tall walls and quarantine warnings. Suddenly, a helicopter appeared above them. Bright searchlights locked onto their bodies. An iron net dropped from the sky, trapping them. As they struggled, their pursuers caught up. That's when the truth was revealed. The monsters were not monsters at all. They were soldiers in biohazard suits. They lifted their yellow goggles and signaled the helicopter to keep hunting other survivors. One soldier tested Claire and Zoe's blood. The result was fatal. Their blood was black, the sign of infection. They had been infected by an airborne virus from the very beginning. All this time, they weren't hiding from monsters. They were hiding from humans. The soldiers raised their weapons. Claire lost control. Black veins spread across her body as she tried to protect her daughter. Just as the soldiers were about to fire, Ray suddenly charged in. He had mutated. With terrifying strength, he knocked the soldiers down one by one. But even his power couldn't stop the bullets. Ray fell, but he gave Claire and Zoe time to escape. The mother and daughter lost all sense of humanity until the last soldier was dead. Slowly, they returned to human form. They rushed back to Ray. He was dying. They stayed with him until his final breath. Then, a sound echoed in the distance. The helicopter was returning. Claire and Zoe escaped the searchlights and climbed into a sewer tunnel. Inside, they met a young boy named Joey, Zoe's neighbor and friend who had survived alone. Joey led them through the tunnels, where they discovered a hidden underground community filled with survivors just like them. Together, they climbed down into the darkness, not as monsters, but as people trying to live. If you enjoy stories like this, you're in the right place. More coming soon. Hit subscribe so you don't miss them.